computer. Well, welcome. Episode number 62. And I have a really important guest here today to share with all his wisdom. And the show is called Men, Medicine, and Myths. And so, I've got Anker here. Still call him Kyle. I call him one of my prodigal sons. And started out at Heaven and Earth Sanctuary and a few years ago, 3 at least. So
About 3.5 now.
yeah, Anker, tell the world who you are and what you're all about.
Yeah, so I live here in Mount Chadipo. Been here about 3.5 years. I was raised in Rhode Island, back in the States, and many stories, many transformations over time brought me here. And I now work at the intersection of men's work, psychospiritual integration coaching, and medicine work. And in this integration of these arts, I'm hoping to recreate the rites of passages that men have lost. So males only truly become men when they're guided by elders through rites and rituals, whereas women, they go through this naturally through childbirth or other energetic processes. And so I personally feel like much of what we're contending with in the world right now, much of these big problems, perpetrated by adult boys who've never broken through boy psychology. And so in all the work I've done with all the medicine and all the trainings and all the trials that life has naturally brought me, nothing has been more impactful and helpful than the work I have done with men, than the trainings I received from my mentor and elder, who has been with a men's group called the Mankind Project for decades. And so I can't find anything greater to do in the world than to work with men in this way. And for time immemorial, humans have worked with psychedelics and plant medicines and ritual and ceremony, not just for initiation, but for communion with spirit and life and whatever they call God. It's this small sliver of time that we're in now, which is the exception. And so I like often to bring these medicines into these rites of passages with men only when it's appropriate. It takes a lot of time to cultivate the proper relationship with rapport and trust and safety to do so. And that's also why I enter this work from a lens informed by harm reduction and integration. You may have heard these terms out there in the world of psychedelics. It's a very nascent conversation, and that just goes to show how much of the Wild West we're in this way. It's not a renaissance. People call it a renaissance. It's more of a revolution. It's kind of chaotic out there, and you won't find many people taking the safety part very seriously, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
Well, a
so
lot
that
of people use it as a recreational too. I mean, that's the where things go off, right?
well, we do have more of a history of using psychedelics, plant medicines, and drugs as recreational tools. And that's particularly a good point because of the main medicine I work with is MDMA. And that on the street is called like ecstasy or Molly, and oft easily abused for partying and for good reason. It helps us feel good. But thanks to the research recently done by MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, in conjunction with the FDA, they have proven that combining this medicine in its pure form, not cut with fentanyl or speed, you combine that with psychotherapy some time beforehand and therapists during the session and afterwards integrating, they have cured war vets with PTSD within 3 to 4 months, a handful of sessions. And so if it can do that for someone with complex trauma, just imagine what it can do for people with, well, I don't want to say lesser trauma, but Westerners all have quite a bit of trauma coming to the table as it is, right? And so the beautiful thing about this medicine, it's very predictable, accurate, reliable in working on trauma, and it doesn't bring up any other shadow like more complex medicines like ayahuasca and mushrooms can do.
Wow. So you've worked with a lot of people with that type of trauma?
I wouldn't say I work with people with complex PTSD. The thing is, right now, due to the news and due to stories of like public figures and
Yeah.
celebrities getting healed and worked on with ayahuasca and shamans over the world and jungles, there's a mass of people like flooding towards this work. Also, those who have been following the work with MAPS. we want healing. It's our greatest, deepest desire to seek healing, because underneath that is our soul's desire to be in community and to be back in connection. So addiction and control patterns, they all stem from lack of connection, and these medicines help with that. However, so many people are going towards the very complex medicines, which are far more advanced. And so when you're starting this work, I would say it's more important and efficacious to work with MDMA or ketamine. I've supported ketamine clinics for years because they're less complex and they focus on the heart of the matter, which is the trauma. And so people I work with tend to have trauma related to depression or anxiety, OCD, ADHD, especially the young kids in high school. These poor kids have been on pharmaceuticals since they were like preteens, and they barely even know who they are or what their feelings are. So that's the sort of trauma I work with. And it's not all like, capital T, like, traditional trauma from, rape and abuse and acts of God, although there's still a lot of like, sexual abuse out there. A lot of it has to do with energetic inconsistencies and problems with our food, our diet, our atmosphere, the energies out
there. And, simple things, even as bullying as child, it's very traumatic it affects us for our whole life. And it can. And what I bring back in what healing actually means is wholeness. And to bring back, a lot of our insecurities. Most people are walking around like Swiss cheese through insecurities or lack of self-esteem or whatever it is. And they're searching for wholeness. And when they can see many layers of themselves and bring that forward and work with that part of themselves that's like a 4-year-old or like inner child work, at least bring it forward through something so they can see it, and then they can work with it. Otherwise it's hidden in the dark. So what kind of coffee cup do you have there? That's pretty cool.
This is my gnome.
Oh, your gnome. That's cute.
Yeah. I studied Norse shamanism and Norse mysticism for many years. Like most people who enter this work to the new age, like you sample the buffet of all the Eastern practices. I still love my yoga, my breath work, my meditation, but who I'm an Eastern European, like Viking, Celtic, Gaelic, Druid shaman. And so I'm connecting a lot more to this these days and have some teachers in that tradition.
With the elementals?
Yeah, working with like the earth elementals, working a lot with Norse paganism, working with the Norse pantheon. Right now, I'm learning the art of storytelling by connecting to spirit companions, like holding stories as a magic, as a certain, how can you say, like stories themselves are magic. In pre-literate times, that's how we discuss how to record ourselves. And in doing so, it's not just the person who's speaking it, it's the history of everyone who's spoken it, and the story itself has a spirit, has an energy.
Well, it's levels of consciousness too, and to be working with the circadian rhythms. I mean, a lot of the patriarchal system has taken that out of, they've demonized it actually, and we hear a lot about, magic is evil, but it's the black magic, or how you use the magic. It seems, I call, even a cook or a chef, they're working with magic. They're working with herbs, mixing them up and making something beautiful, or you can make something taste like shit, right? And so, I mean, people really do need to understand this, is that the old pagan religion was actually the women's religion, to work with the elements of the earth, but do it and then the patriarchal took it over and the religions took it over, and they also use magic. I mean, when you go into a Catholic church, they're doing their incense, you're crossing, it's all magic and casting spells on us. So it's really important that people do learn how to use magic, and the magic of plant medicine is really, really important.
Truly. Yeah. Magic is simply anything that alters the consciousness of yourself or others around you. So it's really degrees of magic. And once you understand that's what magic is, you put your intention into it. And what makes magic black or white is essentially your intention. Like, are you blessing someone? Or are you cursing them?
Right. Simple things like, in the jungle here, I talk about, you can even calm your nervous system just by drinking mango leaf tea. and just pick some leaves, and it totally calms your spinal column down and that primordial life force, especially if people are stuck in fight or flight. And when they're stuck in fight, or yeah, either or. And so you want to calm that nervous system down so that we can relax ourselves, especially with so much going on in the world, so much information, and so much, the veils are lifting, and we're seeing who's behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz.
Hmm.
And it's really time to work with our body in the spinal column to calm ourselves down. So simple thing is just mango leaves. And people, very few people know about it. So yeah, and there's probably lots in your backyard.
Absolutely. It's funny because the term plant medicine, when people use it these days, they just think about, ayahuasca, San Pedro, peyote, but all
Yeah,
plants have medicine. And as we refine ourselves and attune ourselves and heal our traumas, we become more sensitive to receiving the medicine of these plants that are more subtle. Like I've been working with mugwort for years in the evenings to relax, and like I'm noticing it a lot more these days. I'm getting much more vivid dreams, and I'm actually having to like not do it so often because I get restless sleep when I drink too much of it, And
yeah.
that's a great sign because that means I'm open to so much more medicine and so much more support and healing from, as you said, plants in my backyard.
Just making sure I'm recording. I just kind of glanced at it. Yeah, I mean it's really important to, because you anchored your light on that land, is to use as much as you can off that land. And
Yes.
I've got all the Bokansana on here, and a lot of people use that as a heart opening. Some do whole retreats just with Bokansana, and the flower and the bark. So we actually cut the bark off the trees or twigs. And I just planted 3 guanabana trees, which is soursop. And of course, that they say cures, so-called, allegedly, cures cancer. And a lot of people have used mostly the fruit, but they don't know
Yeah.
that the leaf is way more powerful, because it actually induces rest even before you go to bed. To even have that type of tea, it also takes you into a very deep sleep. And so,
Hmm.
these are things that a person can prepare before they maybe even work with you, and going deeper and deeper into different medicines.
I mean, this is precisely why before going into any ceremony, you want to have a diet or a dieta, as some call
Mhm.
it. And the whole point of the diet is simply to lighten your body because these stronger medicines, they want to take you on a journey. They want to bring you into more visionary and cosmological places. So if you're consuming lots of salt or meat or very grounding substances, it's going to be harder to lift you into these helpful realms.
Yeah. Well, we understand that. Some have had some just watermelon and plain rice. That's all they were eating.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm just finishing a diet. Actually, I'm sitting this afternoon with some locals with ayahuasca, and it's really been, gosh, so enlightening this past week because I was only having a cup of coffee per day, but I'm noticing even how much that has affected me. And by letting go of that, I'm feeling more of my natural energy rise, and I don't even feel a need to have that anymore. Um, yeah, always happy to be brought into these like cycles of seeing what else I can do without and how my body responds to removing things and adding things.
Well, you do a lot of bone broths too, don't you? And
I do generally eat a lot of bone broth. That's not welcome on an
no,
ayahuasca diet. It's
yeah.
just been like rice and plantains and beets and maybe potatoes. I had a couple scoops of peanut butter throughout the week, but not too much.
Yeah. You can always do pumpkin seeds, get rid of some uh parasites, they.
Oh, and they're great for male virility and vitality as well.
Oh,
I love
really?
pumpkin
Oh,
seeds. That's what I've been told, and they're delicious and satiating. So I always get a full jar these
yeah.
days. Yeah. Men need all the help they can get right now. Our testosterone levels are lower than ever. And that's another reason why circling up with men and doing men's work is helpful because when men gather, like it's men's cycles align too. Like
Yeah.
women's, we all know what they stay together. Their moon cycle aligns, but men have more subtle cycles. Like a men's cycle is daily, some say. Like in the morning, our testosterone is usually the highest. And when men stay together, over time, their testosterone levels will raise. And I haven't done the deep dive on this, but I definitely experienced that. A couple of months ago, I had a good friend of mine stay with me for a couple of weeks, and the beds are near each other. And I just noticed after a few days, like I have so much more energy. And we were kind of like waking up and falling asleep at the same time. And I talked about it one morning. And the funny thing is, men are known when they have strong testosterone and high virility to be woken up by erections in the middle of the night. But when it's low, it doesn't happen. And I was noticing that more of that was happening. And I mentioned that to him. He's like, yeah, me too. And we actually realized we were waking up at the same time, with all this energy, just wanting to like penetrate and create into the world.
Yeah.
So another reason why men really ought to be gathering together. And it's also why I gather men here in the mountain like every week or 2 weeks right now in low season. Nothing could be more important to me, I think, in the world for men to be gathering because, this, I want to touch upon a touchy kind of subject. You mentioned it earlier, the patriarchy. And I get what's going on there with that term because a lot of the people who are in power are adult males,
Hmm.
though, I'm a big fan of mythology and etymology. And if you look at patriarchy from the energetic sense, patros, the root word, it talks about the father energy, you know,
Hmm.
and the father is a mature masculine. It's similar to the king archetype. It's generous, it's benevolent, it's kind, it's orderly, it's got healthy structure for the feminine creative energy to flow. And these men, like, they're not fathers. They're boys, they're tyrants and they're bullies. And so I feel like what we need as part of the solution in the world is to like revivify this idea of the healthy patriarchy because right now it's a toxic one. Like I don't think the patriarchy itself in essence is the problem, but it's the current one that we have, which to me doesn't even feel like it embodies the truth of what patros energy is. That needs to change. And women have been doing their work for so long, surviving in the face of masculine tyrannical perpetration. And so I don't think we're going to get too much further until men do the work to catch up to women. And so are the matriarchies and the patriarchies, both in their health, can synergize and start weaving, and building something more harmonious. And then I hopefully believe we can come into what Richard Rudd would call a synarchy. There's no person in charge, there's no gender in charge. It's more of like a council, a circle, and everyone is supported to inhabit the role in their village of their unique genius. Yeah, you see it there, the weaving. Exactly. We all weave together, and each of those hands is skilled at something unique, but they're all building the same thing. And this is why I feel like this work I do couldn't be more timely and more pertinent.
Well, it's so, the whole kind of cancel culture, and it's really slamming the masculine energy that they're narcissists if they have too much masculine energy, and the masculine energy really is here to protect the creative energy, which is the divine feminine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not gender specific. It's
Yeah,
just two different energies that blend
but
together, and it's in all of us, the masculine and the feminine. And I mean, even in cosmology, it happens every 26,000 years where the serpent eats its tail, if you want to call it. And we're in that cycle right now, which will switch
mm,
over back to the matriarch, to the divine feminine, people looking for that. And but it's to hold that space within ourselves to allow us to be both. A woman can step up and be strong within her role also.
of
And
course.
yeah, and men are about protecting the community, but you're bringing men together to bring that consciousness or the energy, like you said, when you're with other males, you will all rise to higher levels of themselves, but it's through community, and men can express themselves freely amongst other men and their
Mm-hmm.
emotions
Mm-hmm.
without you know a woman being around and say, oh, you're too emotional, or you're too sensitive. And
Or you're mansplaining.
yeah, yeah. Really
That's exactly
important.
it. It's a good point because we are hot on the heels of the Me Too movement and similar movements, and there's great need for that. It's appropriate right now. But in order for women to come into their power fully, men need to start standing back up and speaking their truth. And it's challenging for many for the reasons that you just said. It's
Mhm.
easy to get shot down. And as we start speaking our truth again, we are going to make mistakes as we circumambulate, towards what's actually true. And most men I see who start to do this, they stop because once they get knocked down, they're afraid and they're scared and they don't have the support of their brothers. And so coming into circles with men, men learn to trust themselves by trusting other men, by being guided to be vulnerable about what their experience of life is. Like simply speaking about their feelings is still challenging for most. It's square one with this kind of stuff. And then once you get to that point, when they trust themselves and they're supported by other men, then they have a good chance of being in a harmonious relationship with a woman because then he
Mhm.
can learn to trust her, trust others.
Yeah.
And then we can get stable, undivided family units again. God bless. Like, I hope that for myself in my lifetime. And then from there, communities that are stable. And then we can start solving problems. But right now, we're so divided,
Yeah.
so divided.
Well, what came up for me there was, oh, I'll think of it. It lost because my phone was clicking. Uh, yeah. Well, like like even as when I'm going to say boys or men, but your first dance in high school or whatever, and they go to ask a girl to dance, and he gets the no comes in or something, and
Yeah,
and
rejection.
they do a few times like that, and then they quit asking. It's the rejection part, and that coming from a really young age, maybe a girl someone liked, and they ask them out on a date or go to a movie and they're no. And so that is really reflected in how many times do they get the no and then they quit asking. That
Yeah.
insecurity comes through rejection, like you said.
Absolutely. And when men are in that place where they have this young, this really primal sexual forces that are coming to life when they're young, they're more in the seeking phase of women.
Mm-hmm.
And if they aren't taught by a healthy masculine role model how to deal with rejection, they're going to shut down because it
Mm-hmm.
is the woman's job to choose. Men seek if they're in the seeking mode, and the women will choose yes or no. So
Yeah.
rejection is part of the game. It's a numbers game. Later in life, if a man isn't paired up and he's really in his like powerful masculine and he's brought in healthy aspects of the king, the warrior, magician, and lover, well, women will start to like be magnetized to him and then he can choose. But it really depends where they are in the game. Rejection is something that's caused many men to shrink and to go low and to be depressed, to be in their parents' basements, to become incels, and to really
Mm-hmm.
just like push off women. And that's as toxic as it gets. We're losing so many men. This is why people like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan, Aubrey Marcus, Jocko Willix, like these, like really strong men. Sometimes to a detriment, but they're lacking powerful, like sound and confident male role models in their life, and largely this is why figures like that have become popular, and for good reason.
Yeah, like in my work, psychosomatic uh, therapy and process, like understanding ourselves. Someone really like body types would be someone that really pumps up their muscular system. There's a hurt little boy in there. And so they actually comes across as nobody will ever hurt me again because too much muscle is a form of protection, just like that. I mean, that's
Yes.
putting on
Mm-hmm.
protection. And for men to understand that, it's just because they can't maybe express their emotions. So they bury it deep and they just keep pumping it up, because the muscle is messenger. So it puts on the armor so they won't be hurt. And so there's always a balance between that too. You see an overly muscular woman looking like a man. I don't know what man would be attracted to that. You
A
know,
feminine man.
yeah, feminine men. Yeah, exactly. So you go opposite. And we can see it in, lesbian couples and stuff like this. There's usually still a masculine and feminine in a partnership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. it's important to be able to tune into like the energy of a human being. And it's reminding me of one of the important parts of like circling, like the mythology aspect of this work. Men's work was born of what was called the mythopoetic men's movement. Robert Bly, a philosopher and poet and psychologist, he was also a student of mythology, and he started men's work in the recent iteration as we know it with the Mankind Project in this beautiful book called Iron John. And Iron John, his book called Iron John, a book for men, is a really poetic and analytical analysis of this ancient story of a boy that leaves the castle and goes out into the woods nearby, and he finds a large hairy man at the bottom of a lake. And this hairy man is Iron John. He represents like the innate primal intelligence of man. And he gives this boy tasks that end up emulating and approximating the rites of passages that all men can go through to become men. And I weave this into the circles I do with men. Yeah, we talk about what's going on, and we focus on energies as the king, warrior, magician, lover to bring some mythology into it. But I help them try to look at their life as a story. And this helps them open up to the energetic aspect of who they are. They soften a little bit. And it's important for a lot of men to come into that relationship to the kernel of their feminine so they can understand that they are magical, in fact. And this is almost my favorite part of the work because I grew up in fairy tales and fantasy and role playing and Dungeons and Dragons. And as far as I can tell, like my life has become that. You know, that's all metaphor, I
Yeah.
believe, for what I'm doing. And I'm reminded of time we spent together when I first came here, and you gave me the Mayan, what do you call it again? The Mayan
Mine,
galactic blueprint,
yeah, the galactic signature blueprint. And
galactic signature.
yeah, it's
I mean, I worked
Mayan astrology. Yeah.
Mayan astrology because I work with all of them. You know, I've had expert astrologers and human design and G keys, I Ching and Enneagram, and they're all accurate.
Yeah.
But the one that you gave me speaks to my role in the world like so accurately. And I'm just so pleased that you gave that to me when I came here as I really took up the mantle of this work. And maybe you want to speak a bit to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I've saw from you like 3.5 years ago, how much you've changed in within yourself, and of course with a lot of different work. And that's, I see things as, first of all, our physical body, which is psychosomatic. It's psychosomatic, meaning the psyche or the soul's consciousness. In the soma, the flesh. Is someone at home, or are they all up here? Remember, I would
Mm-hmm.
keep saying, look at someone when you're speaking to them, because you'd be up somewhere else talking away. And that, you have just grounded and come into your own, really honoring your own mission in life. And what I say to people, everyone's purpose is the same, is to love themselves, and the mission will come through and become whole within themselves. So understanding the physical body, definitely first and foremost, and keep your feet straight, right? And
I
that's the
remember
first.
that.
Yeah.
I actually am walking straight now, and every time I
You
look down at
are.
my feet, remember your
Yeah.
guidance there.
I'm not saying at the farmer's market, hey, Kyle, your feet are, or Anker, your feet are in two different directions. So, I
Yeah.
haven't had to say that. And I watch everyone to see if
Yep.
they actually are doing it. Anyways, then we go higher, like astrology is the next layer. I say to get all pieces of yourself. And I don't study the traditional astrology, or I know my sign and stuff, but I have it all printed out. So I say people make a book of themselves with all the different readings that we can have. And then higher than that is numerology, where I use psychosomatic numerology. It's how light splits into the world and using our numbers. And then one higher, then you can add on your gene keys and different codes that we get from different uh, modalities or divination tools that we can use. And all of these, it's all putting our pieces together. And then left brain function is very much your human design, because it's very robotic and
Yeah.
circuits, and it's all left brain. where galactic signature blueprint is right brain function,
Yeah.
because it's more like we're all making up a fairy tale. Why not make up a good one? And it gives you some guidance,
Yeah.
and you take what resonates and let go of the rest. I mean, certain parts resonate. Mine brought me to Costa Rica. When I started taking mine seriously, something just came through me and I knew where I had to be. And I found one place for sale. It was called Heaven and Earth Sanctuary. I says, I didn't name it. That was already named. And I
Hmm.
says, what better place? The Lightworkers Institute at Heaven and Earth Sanctuary. And people come here, right? And so everything just kind of starts falling into place when you take it seriously, because you're creating from the right brain function. But right brain function, we use archetypes. So what we said, you're the enlightened one, and you're the yogini. Primal force was your third dimension. Your fourth dimension was what? What was that?
The
I don't.
blue monkey? The
Yes, the blue.
sun.
Yeah, no. The blue monkey, it's your fourth
Ah,
dimensional self. That's what you desire to learn in this lifetime. It's your biggest
yeah.
challenge and your greatest gift.
Magic and play.
Yeah, exactly. The monkey likes
Yeah.
to monkey around, right? And
Yeah.
that but it's going to be your greatest gift when you mature into it, and that's a life process. But it also has to come from the higher self, which is the red serpent. And the red serpent is the kundalini. It's working with uh sexual sensual energy, and it's what it's out of balance on the planet with all the child sex trafficking and pedophilia, and people don't know which sex they are or gender they are or whatever. It's out of balance on this planet, and we need
Yeah.
to bring that back into balance. And so yeah, I mean, when you really get into it, and so like we can't say it's just circuit 3250. It means nothing to the creative mind. So we use different energies or levels of consciousness, like working with the dragon energy. That's what you're introducing more and more into your life, and that primal force using the plant medicines and your DNA. You're already enlightened. You came in. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA. So yeah, I mean, and to walk in that path in pride and dignity for that beautiful little 4-year-old boy that came here with so many things he wanted to do, right? And it's
Hmm.
but we try to do it from the mind, we shut our intuition down, because it's got to be birthed this way, and it comes
Yeah.
from the sacral chakra.
That makes so much sense. I took this work so seriously at first in my training in my first couple of years. And I was very like, wagging the finger at people that I knew weren't being safe and cautious, like the way I was trained and taught. And I just imagined, well, if I could learn it and figure it out like anyone can. I came from such simple upbringings, and like I'm blaming people for not knowing things, like they were ignorant. And now I took a step back and I'm like, wow, I can't help these people if I'm being angry with them, if I'm pushing them away.
Yeah.
And in a recent transformational retreat I went to, I came up with these affirmations to be loving with my truth. If I speak my truth with love, I won't push people away. And to be playful with my power. Now I'm realizing that's blue monkey energy. And so I'm coming out more, sharing more of my story, and it's feeling good, but being playful and light with it. And just I know the world's on fire. We're in a dark age, but if you can't bring comedy and levity and humor to this work, it's not going to work. And
Yeah.
that's really what I'm stepping into in a bigger way right now.
Well, hey, you got a master trainer there, and his name would be Jimmy.
Yes, that's
And
right. That's why I got the dog.
what a blessing Jimmy is. And we all know Jimmy on the mountain. So, I mean, he picked you, and he's
True.
teaching you that childlike nature, because he knows this land very well here too. And there is something about your shift, even since you've had Jimmy, is he's teaching you how to play. Hey, come on, let's get out there and
Yeah. It's funny because he won't play in the traditional dog sense. Like I
No.
can't do fetch and tug with him here. He wants to go running, through the jungle and through the streets. And like I see his big smile and it makes me smile. Like it definitely works. I also feel like it's part and parcel of my goal to like soon find my partner and like get married and start a family. Because I hear dogs are really good training for that.
Yeah.
Started with two cats. That was pretty easy. Now I got a dog. I got a toad that comes at night and a bunch of spiders, but that's more of my like, energetic signature.
Well,
But
the
yeah,
frog medicine is great. It's purification, right? And the frog is telling you, purify.
is it? I didn't know
Yeah.
that about frogs. I was curious about what that frog symbolism means.
And
Okay.
spider is weaving webs, right? The
Well,
web
that's
we
what I'm
weave.
doing right now. I'm
Yeah.
learning. So in Norse storytelling and mysticism, we call storytelling like weaving,
Yeah.
weaving a story because we don't know what we're going to say, but letting us be informed. And the weaving behind you, the spiders around me, the different teachings I'm getting from a mystical and practical perspective with the storytelling class and this mastermind I'm in. Weaving and storytelling is my art right now. And that gets to be playful and it gets to be loving truth. I can't be like, no one's going to pay attention if I'm like, this is right and this is wrong. And like, don't do this and do that. Like, that's, it's not honey to tongue. I'm working on the honey to tongue.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, things work better with honey and I mean, we're all weaving our own story and where we want to go in the future as humanity is, as it is
Mm-hmm.
right now. And we're really challenged. Which direction do we want to go, you know, more into AI and lose our humanness, or are we going to hold on to our humanness and, not give it away? So yeah, it's a challenging time. What a great time to be alive. I mean, it's so exciting. It's
It is.
and that's where the humor comes in. You got to have humor and playfulness, and yeah, it brings joy into our life, and joy means to join within ourselves, no matter what happens out there, to find our center core of strength within.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Joy and wholeness, like you said in the beginning, is really at the heart of this work.
Yeah.
We experience that joy and our wholeness in ourselves, and then we can share it with others and come into connection, come into community like this
Mm.
beautiful community we have here. I know it's just the beginning, but I know it's only going to get more beautiful and more inviting and more connected. Um, that's why also I love being here for the work too. I love inviting people into experiences here. It's one thing to go on like a weekend warrior retreat somewhere in the States and get right back to work, but that's not what the point of this is. It's
Yeah.
about to experience community. And so I like to use the term like immersion instead of retreat. I'm not asking people to run away from anything. I'm
Yeah.
asking them to come to a true experience of themselves. I'm asking them to come here and spend a week or two and meet the people in this community, see what life can be like if you continue to walk this path, be in the pure, pristine nature of like clean air, food, water, soil, people, and energy. I just had a client, my longest term client, I've been with him over like 2 years. And he came to stay with me for 2 weeks here in my cabin and then
Yeah.
got his own place for a week. And I told him that the biggest teaching here is not going to be the medicine journeys that we do. It's going to be the time you spent here. And he
Yeah.
was kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, I've been there before for a day or two. And as he was leaving, that last time I saw him at market, he's like, there's something that's different about being here. I'm already noticing I'm gonna go back and wow, it's gonna be so noisy and so busy and like I've been so quiet and peaceful here. I'm like, yeah, like pay attention to that part of you that feels that and see where it takes you.
Well, I had a gentleman here, right? One of your students or whatever men you work with, and part of it is tell everyone Wednesday morning market, you have to do it, even when people are booking retreats now, and I tell them, you got to leave Wednesday morning open because it's really important for the
Yeah.
community also to see, who's coming here, but who's here, and you meet, everyone else in the community too. So it's and to give back to the community here, right? Because there's lots of little gifts they can buy, and but it is part of them feeling part of the community, even if it's a very short time, and they're lacking that. This isn't a mall, you know.
No.
And
Yeah.
talking about retreats, yes, there's even changing our language. Like I never go on vacations because vacation means you're vacating your life and you still go back to the same old shit. The dishes are still
Yeah.
in the sink and the bed's unmade, whatever. But I call it holidays or holy days. So you
Mm.
become whole. And, I don't want to do anything like go sit on a beach all inclusive and you come back, a week later with a hangover and a sunburn. Why not?
Right.
Why not do something, like really get in and do something. So when I travel now, I go to the States or, I just came back from Tampa. Well, I was speaking at a event and I think you froze. Are you there? Uh-oh. Anker. I think he froze. I'll just text him.
Our computer just restarted for some reason. I'll be right back.
Okay, he's going to be right back. And I'm just going to put this on pause. Well, what I was saying is that we need to come back and there we go. Here he comes again. Uh,
Bill Gates robots decided that it was a good time to restart my computer and update.
yeah.
I got settings.
Well, I thought I thought you froze or something. So that was
That's how
yeah,
it looks on your end. Yeah.
but that was
Apologies.
fast getting back on. So
Thankfully.
yeah,
Yeah.
what I was saying is vacation holidays is like holy days and taking time to explore ourselves and become whole within ourselves and to then when something changes within ourselves and we go back home, we can see things differently. Like you said, that young man, he thought, it's going to be very busy. And I was saying, I was in Tampa, Florida. We canceled our tour and went and helped the flood victims in up
Mhm.
in St. Pete Beach for 3 days. We threw out couches and fridges and stoves. There was 8 of us, and we came together as a crew and joined another crew. And we went shopping. We got donations and filled a U-Haul twice with stuff from wherever we could buy it. Like flashlights and sleeping bags and stuff they needed. They gave us a list of things they needed. So, but to do that for 3 days, the enlightenment and the joy that the people we met were crying just because we showed up and and brought our energy. And this isn't politics. This is helping each other. And right now,
Mhm.
the same people, our crew was bringing cadaver dogs into North Carolina
Oh,
to help over there because it's it's not what they're saying it is on the news. They're thinking way more than 9/11 that have perished in that so-called flood.
mhm.
And we're still lied about that. But anyways, that's another thing. But it is, and here we need our men to step up for the turbulence that is going on. And that's the importance of
Yeah.
finding it through certain work. And if people are attracted to that, finding that within themselves, and you carry that energy so well now, and way different than 3 years ago. You've
Yeah.
really stepped into your power.
Thank you for seeing that. It's been a wild ride and it's kind of interesting and shocking to imagine it's only been 3 short years. Like I remember my first handful of months here. I was going through a crisis, when I was in that White Wizard Lodge and I decided this is what I'm going to do and made that prayer to spirit, like, okay, now's the time. I thought I had more time. I thought I would save more money, but this is it. If I'm going to say yes to my purpose in life, this is the time. And so many people turned on me, like, you're not experienced enough, you're not ready, you're not following the path, you didn't get the training. And I was like, I've been apprenticing for years. I'm not chasing some above ground certification that's all didactic and theory and no practice. Like, in retrospect, I realized I had the real training. At the time, I was still a little unsure. And, there was some imposter syndrome, but I went forward with it. And I was so alone in there. All
Mm.
those weeks I was there, I felt like I was just by myself having to figure this out and doing way too much hape, beating my drum and singing to calm myself, throwing money at all these different courses I thought would help me build what I needed to build, learning good lessons because of that. And eventually came out the other end. But I was running around like a raving madman with a big crazy beard for a while. But yeah, it worked out. And I love
Yeah.
what you're saying too about like um not vacating, not retreating. It's like, well, how beautiful is it to live a life where we don't feel the need to run away from it? And I understand why people go on vacations. Like, they live these lives where they're trading their time and their life essence
Hmm.
for money, and they need to unplug from that. And they kind of just like sit there like this confused robotic thing on a beach chair, like, wow, rest. What is this? And
Yeah.
then they go back to it. Whenever I leave to go back to the States these days, and it's like you said, like bringing that energy back there, the men standing up to doing this holy work, it feels like a pilgrimage every time. It's getting easier to navigate the challenging energies there, but
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
always
yeah.
massive trial and that I'm like called into supporting. And yeah, it's a little different dance these days. Like, I weave in time to care for myself while I'm here. And sometimes I simply take time off seasonally. This isn't the season for work. It's time to rest and go slow. But it feels good to have come to a place where I don't feel like I need to run away from life to care for myself. And I get to invite other people into that experience. And they leave, like my client did, they leave here feeling that on some
Yeah.
subconscious level that eventually unfolds and we integrate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I worked a lot in the native tradition with the Blackfoot Nations and, at all their sun dances. And I would go every month to the full moon sweat lodges. But at the same time, I should say, it's like a vision quest and to
Yes.
find yourself within the vision quest. And it comes in many, many different ways. So when a person um, I did all my courses and trainings in hotel rooms and or in, event center, or I could say I had the keys to the Masonic Hall for 10 years in Calgary, just because they loved us because we did sacred geometry and I didn't know anything about it, but they gave me the keys and it was really cheap, $150 a day with a big kitchen and room. But to come to the jungle now, that's what people are evolving so much faster when they come
Yeah.
to the jungle. They're away from their everyday life. They're not going home every night to their family and challenge and cooking and blah blah blah. Everything is done for them here, so they have that time to spend with themselves, on themselves. And right down to all the couple of houses I did build here, I didn't put any pictures on the walls. They were all white. And just because your picture is out there in nature, not to have too many distractions. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's really about, and that's why you bringing people to the jungle here is giving them that opportunity to see themselves in a whole different light without all the distractions around them. And yeah, just out of their own environment. And yeah, so and they're not going back with a hangover after all inclusive. And often when
Mm-hmm.
when you I mean, I've been doing this for 24 years, and you get on the phone and ask people do discovery sessions and what you want out of life and what are you looking for, right? And oh, then it's exactly what they're looking for, but no, I can't afford it right now. And then a month later, you see them on the beach in Hawaii or in Mexico drinking their margaritas. They people will take time for that, but not spend necessarily any time on themselves. And like
Mm-hmm.
women think it's all about, going to a spa and getting massage. I mean, those are all great things, or getting their nails done or toenails, which is good. But they think that is about working on themselves or taking time for themselves. So, yeah. Do you ever work with women or mostly men? I think that's you
Fair
have probably.
question. I specialize in men, but I also work with women. And I've noticed as I look back at the women I've worked with, they are women who have a strong relationship to their masculine side. Women who work in tech, for example.
Yeah,
Um,
very
and
much
many
so.
women these days, of course, are holding a lot more masculine energy than they want to. And that builds into resent. A lot of this new wave of feminism is far more masculine than the prior ones, and they feel
Mhm.
like taking on masculine roles and jobs and positions is going to equalize things, but it's only festering deep in their soul so much more
Mhm.
resent and negativity. And so yes, I can and do work with women. I just work more with men.
Yeah, I mean, you even see it energetically, even from one coast to the other. I think of New York or Toronto, Montreal, all the women tie their hair up and they got their black suits and black briefcases. And then you go to Vancouver, the Pacific side, it's different energy again, right? And
Oh
that
yeah.
throws things out of balance within ourselves, right? Even you can tell when they're going into the corporate office, they got to dress corporately. You're not going to put on a pink frilly dress to go to a board meeting.
Mhm.
So it's giving people an opportunity to find themselves again in their expression through all areas of life. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
And this isn't to say some women aren't designed to be like very masculine and like, to be a warrior woman, to be a Joan of Arc, for example. Those archetypes do exist.
yeah.
I just think there's far too much of that happening now today for it to be like a healthy, natural balance and like something is up.
Well, I'm going to give men a little uh, nugget here. Gold nugget is when I go somewhere, or well, it's not so much in the jungle here in warm weather, but I would always like going to a mall or a restaurant, and I still do it. Is I'll stand at the door and wait for the man to open the door if I know him or not, and
Mm,
they'll look a little surprised. And I says, "Well, say thank you." I says, "You know why I let you open that door? Because it increases your testosterone." And I'll say that to anyone that I don't even know, right? And they laugh, but it is because you're allowing a man to be a man. And I fought that for years with my teacher, Herman, is because it would make me angry because he would always open the car door for me. And I said, like, I can open my own fucking door. He says, can't you just
yeah.
let me be a gentleman? And finally I got it, was just, yeah, he wants to do it for a woman. He did it for all women. It wasn't, and why aren't the women allowing men to do things like that for them? And we understand walking down a sidewalk. A man should always
Mhm.
be on the curbside because in case the car goes by and splashes water on them or something, the woman doesn't get her dress dirty, right? And these are
Mhm.
things we need to bring back into play is as women is allow men to pull out a chair for them or gestures, or I'll even tell a man if I'm with them, if you want to pull out my chair. And so it's teaching men to be gentlemen too.
Yeah. That's beautiful to offer that invitation. Things like that have been lost in society. And it reminds me of another thing we've lost, which is courting.
Yeah.
Dating and connecting between men and women has become so systematized and automated and focused on just this
And
the wrong idea of relating it. It's very toxic. It's all about the hookup culture.
well, I
And
was
it's
going to
because
say
these
Tinder,
yeah, that's
like
what I'm saying. These
whatever.
young men and women don't know better.
Mhm.
And I'm noticing like this idea of courtship coming back. I follow a lot of really like healthy men who talk about polarity and like the dating game really is changing. Gosh, after I came to Costa Rica, I stopped using dating apps, and I'm like, wow, what a
Mhm.
what a great way to like contain and revitalize some of my energy. Now, like dating here is a very different game, but it's all about being at the right place at the right time and trusting those
Yeah.
people will find you. And like, I'm not concerned about that anymore.
Well, that's part of manifestation is, you put the energy out there and what comes to you, wait to see what comes, but you got to let go of the outcome and it'll come. You just have to write down exactly what you want and be
Hmm.
patient and let it happen. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, energetically, like I say, Tinder really, I've never been on anything like that. I've never even been on a dating site or ever any type of that energy. So it's interesting how that's gonna, evolve into the future. And like you say, it is much different for the younger people now that they haven't experienced that. And I would say be great for even really young men, if any parent is listening, if your child has some issues, is to connect with men that have that space for them to open up and learn the art of courting. Or
Yeah.
I used to teach the art of flirting. And flirting is really, really important. And actually, Maritza is a master at flirting. I says, you flirt with everyone. And we learn to flirt with men and women. And it's part of it's kind of a humor too, right? It
It's
doesn't
playful.
playful, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We need more of that in the world. We've
I
lost our
mean, you
connection
see,
that way.
when I flirt with you too. I'll say, "Oh, cut your mustache back because that's your penis
Yeah.
and your clitoris," and that's part of flirting, right? The way I teach is flirting, and it brings humor because so much people think all healing has to be through, throwing themselves on the floor and crying and but humor is a big part of healing. And
Yeah.
to because the whole physical body will fibrillate when you laugh and you have a real good laugh, the
Hmm.
body is releasing energy. And that's the healing part of it too, is laughter. Tears can be tears of joy or tears of sadness. Still need, long as they don't go back into the poor me, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's all this focus on shadow work, and I get it. There is a lot of shadow there. And this also reminds me why like MDMA psychotherapy is so, so particularly helpful for the Western mindset, because we've lost our condition to like our heart, the Western heart set rather.
Mhm.
And just like how trauma, as Gabor Mate has told us, is what is kept in our bodies. It's not
Yeah.
what happened. It's like how we carry it. The same thing happens for incredibly joyous and love-filled events. So in an MDMA session, you are flooded with love, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, your amygdala is shut down. No matter what you're experiencing, you're going to feel this profound sense of acceptance and truth and like love for yourself as yourself. And your body is going to remember that. That alone is transformational. But then if you have skilled guidance to like take that place that you're in, that
Mhm.
disposition, and say, hey, remember this thing we were talking about, this part of you that protects you from this trauma? Let's check in on that part. And like when we get there, it's like, gosh, thank you for all these years of protecting me the best way you knew how. And guess what? This is who I really am. And that part's like, wow, if you have this much love, maybe I don't need to protect you with sadness and anger all the time. I can maybe rest a little bit. And that's when we get to the unburdening of core traumas like betrayal and rejection and shame and guilt. And it's like healing can be incredibly joyous. And I think before we get into the shadow work, it's important for people who want to walk this path, and it's not for everyone, to get back in touch with this. How does it feel to love yourself? Because
Yeah.
walking this path is a path of self love. And let's
Mhm.
feel love first before we get into the masochism. That's how I started this work. I was like, oh man, I've been hurting people all these years of my life. I think it was like 28 when I had this realization about how I had these narcissistic tendencies. I wasn't a narcissist because a
Yeah,
full narcissist would not admit it, but I was like,
exactly.
I'm hurting people that I love. I can't be this anymore. There was like this line, the sands of time in my life where like the whole boat shifted. I'm like, I got to change this. But I was young, I was a little foolish. And being a man like that, the lone wolf, and we're taught to, be masochistic with, well, I've been hurting people. So my healing has to hurt. And I just went straight into the most challenging ceremonies, lots of ayahuasca, and just letting it rip me apart until I found Wachuma, which was my teacher. My teacher was a Wachumero, and I found that, and I'm like, oh, healing can be joyous. It can feel really good. It can be in my body, singing, dancing, and chanting, which is what that music's all about. That medicine's all about. And like it's very analogous to the chemistry of MDMA. Of course, Wachuma lasts much longer. It's far more complex, and it's got a plant spirit, which a different energy. But MDMA is very similar. It's like, oh, healing can feel good. This is what joy is like. Wow, I haven't felt this since I was a child. So starting with play is how I love to do this work. And one more thing I want to mention about that, since we're on the idea of like the work in my offering, we spoke a lot earlier about the value of coming into community, of the immersive experiences. I like to think about this work being done safely and the way that the village did it. Villages who work together, they don't know the term integration or trauma because they're integrated with themselves, with nature, with spirit and medicine. And their trauma work is communal. So they would often gather to do medicine in community, and they're healing themselves and each other's. Now, the village medicine man, woman, shaman, seer, they know everyone in their village. And so when they do medicine work with them, they understand what's going on. They have that deep rapport. They can guide them through the experience, and they can hold them through it afterwards. Now, if you look at why we talk about integration, this is why, because we're not villages. So this is why immersive experiences that are either with you and your guide or that team for a long time, or they come with a lot of time beforehand, preparing, thorough intake, and afterwards with integration. That's why this is so important, because in doing that and having that time spent with your guide and their community and in like their land and home and village, you are recreating in many ways the safety of the village. And a lot of the work out there, it's like fly by night. People just come and like, we're having a ceremony tonight, and like totally great. And like, actually, no, weekend warrior somewhere a couple hours outside of your home, where you go to the jungle for a week and come back and no help. There's a lot of that happening. I think maybe a lot more than people know. And when people come out the other side dysregulated, those stories get swept under the rug. You don't want to badmouth the indigenous or ancient wisdom, but you know what? The big I integration of this work is about bringing in the ancient wisdom and their traditions with an understanding of the unique Western psychopathologic mindset, because they don't get that. And we don't get what they've got. So we need to weave that together in a village way.
Well, I call it walking between the worlds and learning how to balance yourself between those two worlds. And so, and I love how you said that, is that they're two different mindsets for sure, and even cellular memory of things. So, so when are you going to do one here? You can Heaven and Earth Sanctuary. You bring a men's retreat here. I think it's beautiful. It's
I would love to.
yeah.
I don't have anything planned right now. I'm currently like in a deep coaching container, being coached by some experts in my field and building my community, weaving and sharing my story more. Though I'm still doing a lot of one-on-one work, and then having people come here. And when I travel the States, I still do retreats with my teacher. I'll probably have one coming up this summer. But if anyone's out there is interested, like I am open to new work, and just reach out to me. And yes, as I start to build my community and gather more people who are ready to come here in larger groups, we will have tree at Heaven and Earth for sure.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, say with what you said earlier, I wanted to touch on that was not thinking you're ready for the work. When I first started this and I was ready, got my teacher's training, been through the class how many times, but I got to teach something, right? And we teach what we've got to learn. And we're a little bit, now I can teach in my sleep. And, but the first face reading class I ever taught was like, oh my God, like, am I going to do it right? And I don't know how to draw on a board and all these, and that's how we grow through it, even though you can have released a lot and feel whole within yourself, but there's still the skill of practicing things. And the more you do it, it's not, you only become a teacher when you start teaching, not before that, right?
Yeah.
And so, or coaching. I mean, people take years and years of coaching, how to coach, but then they never start coaching or, using the work on their own outside of the safety of a teacher, right? Or their own teacher,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
even though I would teach lots when Herman would come, but to do it on my own and do my own tours was really when I really started to learn the work, embodied it a lot deeper, even because I
Hmm.
started teaching it. So Anker, I think we're almost pretty well at our hour. And so one last, wisdom that you want to tell the audience here, and a lot of this grassroots warrior audience is people looking for something like this. And there's a lot of talk, like you say, in plant medicine, even amongst, the people that watch these channels, is they don't understand. I mean, the ayahuasca is coming up a lot, and some
Yeah.
of them still don't know what a chakra is, just different from, or a lot more people are hearing more about chakras. So, yeah, tell us some wisdom for them as we close this. And maybe when you start when you really want to start running, uh, what did you call it? Immersion here? Like we'll get you
Hmm.
on again and see how far you've come with it. So,
Hmm. Yeah, well, I understand that these audiences are people who really care about the well-being of humanity. They see the need to change the world, and it's urgent. They don't deny the fact that we're in dark and trying times in crisis mode. And I want to honor each person watching this in your path in life because it is a noble one. It is the path of the warrior. And if you are feeling the call to develop your strength to do this work with psychedelics or plant medicines, my only advice there is to be really curious and to be really discerning and to use that passion of yours to protect and to grow and bring it inward and do your research, question people, interview them if you're thinking about working with them, reach out to people that you know who've done it and have had good results because it's the Wild West out there.
mhm.
And while it isn't for everyone, for those that it is for, it can be so incredibly beneficial if you're on the path for working to save humanity, to better the world for all of us, to recreate the village. And I'm always here to entertain curiosities or questions for anybody on this path. It is my mission here in this world. So feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. And I have, people when they come to stay, they come from different countries and stuff, and they ask, who should I work with? And I'll refer people to you, is at least meet a, I introduce you to a lot of different people and see what's right. And we resonate with different people too. That's what you said.
Truly. Yeah.
Interview them and really don't take it lightly. And, there's a lot of even like ayahuasca, like what's rhythmia or something, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of cosmetic type places I call,
Truly.
yeah, drugstore shaman out there. And really, yeah, just do your work and like
Hmm.
do your research on people and ask for referrals. That's always a great thing too. So,
It's like signing up for school. It's a mystery school. And so,
yeah,
like, you may have done your research before deciding where to go for university. Oh, this is a lot different than university. You'll learn a lot more useful
yeah,
skills. You want to be as curious and discerning and
mhm,
ask around. There's a lot
yeah.
of options.
It's a lot of teachings and different types of teachings. And so
Hmm.
through this journey. So, well, thank you, Anker. Wonderful having you here. Like I say, my prodigal son, every time you leave, I always welcome you back to the community.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. So much of the community here has come through heaven and earth. And I do call in light workers from all over the world. And someday I'll actually, show my why Costa Rica. Right now, I still have it, tucked in my computer. all the different wisdom that is on the mountain here, and the vortex that it is, and being on Rio Chiripo, meaning eternal waters. And
Right.
that's where, people are swimming in these eternal waters, in the universal waters of time. And, we need that, kind of, what do you want to call it? A swimming instructor, and to navigate this time through I say is going through the fourth dimension and coming back to um, galactic signature. I mean, Trump is his fourth dimensional self is the red earth, which is the navigator. I believe he is navigating us through this time and space to come to that higher self or that higher dimension. And I believe he's a time traveler. So he's come back to get us somehow. He sure woke a lot of us up and just into what's going on in this world. And it's what a journey it's been on, whether, we like him or not, or who he is. It doesn't matter. He woke us up. That's all I'm concerned with. And
Yeah.
so it's a beautiful time what we're going to co-create this new earth. And this time we're going to do it. I believe this is comes every so many thousands of years that we have this opportunity, this gap that we can move forward with. So with that, I'm going to say thank you all for listening, and we love you all, and come to Costa Rica, work with Anker or myself or whatever you're looking for. So much love, and we will see you Wednesday.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Carole.
So